I'm Ellen Davis from Paws Dog Training. I'm an IMDT qualified dog trainer in the Surrey and Hampshire area. The IMDT stands for Institute of Modern Dog Trainers. So any advice you get from anyone that's IMDT qualified, you can rest assured it's all positive reinforcements. We're not going to be using any harsh punishments or reprimands. And today's video is going to be on puppy nipping and chewing, and also we're going to cover what to do when the dogs jump up at us as well. And some of this advice can be used both for puppies and for adult dogs. So just to introduce my two dogs here, I've got Buttons, who is my puppy. She is a Cocker Spaniel cross Labrador. And this is Ruby, my Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. She is my old lady, she's 11 years old. And just to note, they are both rescue dogs. We got Buttons at 9 weeks from a lovely foster home in Wales, part of Many Tears Animal Rescue. And Ruby was a rescue. We got her at, I think she was 8 or 9 months old. And she was from the RSPCA in the Woking area. So both rescue doggies, both as younger dogs. So that's these two here. So any of you that have got puppies or have had puppies know that puppy nipping and chewing can be a real problem. Especially if you've got young children in the family. They might be jumping up and biting the children. They might be chewing the children's toys. They might be chewing your furniture. So we need to have a look and understand why the puppies are nipping and chewing in the first place, and then see if we can address that and give them alternatives to do instead, or different areas that they can chew. So the reasons why puppies will be chewing, when we're talking about young puppies under sort of 12 or 13 weeks, then really they're nipping and chewing because they are playing, they're exploring the world around them. When they're playing, if you see puppies playing with each other, they'll be biting and hanging off of each other's ears and off of any loose hair. They might be biting at each other's mouths and feet and ankles as well, and legs. And tails, especially adult dogs, if they're wagging their tails, a puppy might come up and try and play with their tail. And it's all part of their learning and playing with each other, and it's how they play with each other. And what they do is they want to try and transfer that play onto humans as well, which is lovely, but actually it's something that we don't really want. We don't want them jumping up at our faces and trying to bite us or trying to bite our hands when we're stroking them. Another reason they might be biting is with frustration. So please don't misconstrue this as a sign of aggression. It's just a puppy's way of telling you that they don't like whatever they're having done at that time. So that could be that they're turning around and trying to nip you while they're having a veterinary check, or while you're having their nails trimmed, or trying to groom them, or trying to cuddle them. And it's just their way of saying they don't like what they're having done at that moment. So really what we want to do is try and teach them that whatever it is we're doing to them can be a very positive thing. And we can use praise in the form of touch if they like touch, voice. We can obviously use food and play in there as well. I've got a selection of toys over here to show you. Good toy to use is a Kong. So for instance, if I am trying to groom Buttons or trying to do her nails, then I might just fill this Kong up with maybe some safe peanut butter. That's something that doesn't have artificial sweeteners like xylitol in. So I could fill it up with some safe doggy peanut butter. I could mash up a banana or a carrot, pop it in there. I could even use Kong actually make a stuff and paste. I don't use a lot of this because I don't know how it's going to affect their tummies, but again, this is another option. You just pop the nozzle in and squirt it, and that could keep the puppy occupied while you're trying to do something. Another big reason that they might be biting and chewing things is teething. So when puppies get to around 12 to 14 weeks, their adult teeth are going to start to come down, and their baby teeth are going to start to wobble until the adult teeth push the baby teeth out. That usually see a change in teeth around 4 months. But I would say that teething can start from around 3, because the adult teeth have to start shifting in the mouth. We won't even notice that, but the dog will certainly be feeling it, and they will be getting a little bit uncomfortable. And they have to chew to pain relief, to massage and pain relief, but also to wobble the baby teeth free and to stimulate the growth of the adult teeth to come down. Chewing is a really, really important part of their teething process. And simply telling the dog off for chewing is not going to stop them, and it's not going to help them. So we need to try and teach them the things that are appropriate to chew, so that they can do what they need to do with their mouths, but on appropriate things. So I've got together some items here that Buttons quite likes and that are appropriate for her while she's teething. The first thing is I've picked out is a Kong. So if she's having a teething moment, then I might pop something in there and she can lick it out, and she might even bite on it as well. It's nice hard rubber, and that's a puppy medium size that she's got there. Another thing that she really likes is this, which is something called coffee wood, and it's a safe alternative to sticks. Dogs love chewing sticks, but they're quite dangerous. They can splinter and cause all sorts of problems, and can be quite dangerous. So this is something that is specifically designed for dogs, and Buttons really loves it, and she gives it a really good chew. So when she's having a moment where she really needs to chew on something, her teeth are really aggravating her, then I get out the coffee wood, and she tends to have a really nice gnaw on that coffee wood as she's showing you there. Good girl. And I've just noticed with Buttons that her incisors are starting to drop out now. So you can see she's munching with her front teeth because I think they are the ones that are aggravating her the most at the moment. Good girl. I've also got here a rubber ball. Now, I'm not a big fan of tennis balls. I saw an incident with a dog years ago. The owner threw a tennis ball, the dog caught it, and it went straight to the back of the throat, and the dog almost passed out because it couldn't breathe. Luckily we were able to get the tennis ball out of their mouth, but I'm not a big fan of tennis balls, especially with larger breeds, because they can just go straight to the back of the throat and block the dog's airway. So always try and use a ball that is bigger than the dog's mouth, so that there's no chance that it can get blocked. And this one's rubber, so they can have a nice good chew on it. It's got lots of holes, so they can breathe through it anyway. So that's a lovely one. We can play fetch with this ball, and it's a nice one that if she wants to, she can have a good chew of it as well. So that's a really nice ball. We've also got antlers. This is ethically sourced antler. And again, sometimes she likes to have a nice little nibble on that. So that's another good one. We've got nyla bone and another alternative here. So they're another couple that she can chew on. This is probably a little bit small for her now. This is getting a little bit small for her, but they are just artificial sort of alternatives to the wood and the antlers. We've got softer options as well. So sometimes they just want to have a bit of a mouth on something rather than a real gnaw on it, and they want to get comfort from them. So I've got a couple of nice soft toys. We have got others, but I've just picked out a couple. They make a nice noise. This one squeaks. So there are a couple of alternatives for her as well. I've got a slightly more hard-wearing alternative to the toy as well. We've introduced this actually just this morning. She quite likes it, but she's really into the coffee wood, as you can see. And we've got a rope toy as well. This is quite good. She loved this when she was tiny, and she still likes to play with it now, as you can see. And the nice thing about this is if we soak this in water and then pop it in the freezer, this is nice and cold, so when we get it out she can have a really good crunch onto that, and the cold will help to numb the pain that's going on inside her mouth. So anything you can give them that's nice and cold or frozen is really nice for them to really get their teeth into. So that's a nice ropey toy. You can get rope tug toys and everything, but this was just a little teddy bear that I found and thought was quite cute. But I have to say my favourite and her favourite is coffee wood. It's really nice. You can get that from most pet shops or online. They're not too expensive, and they seem to be lasting a long, long time. So she's had that a couple of weeks now, and yeah, doing really well with it. She loves it. So lots of different options there. So if they are having a chewy moment, if they're chewing on something that they shouldn't be, let's say they're having a good gnaw on their table or side of your sofa, a chair leg, then what we're going to do is just call them away from that item, and we're going to offer them something that they are allowed to have. So our first go-to is the coffee wood, but as you can see we've got some other examples as well. So if they're chewing something they shouldn't be, move them away, replace with an item that they should chew instead. Now, a little tip for you here as well. We don't want the dogs going back to the same areas that they shouldn't be chewing. So I managed to purchase, this here is a anti-stop chew spray. So what I do is, if there's an area of the house that she's looking particularly interested in, I'm going to move her away, get her occupied with something that she can chew, and then I'm going to give that area a good spray. This is the Dog Doctor's stop chewing spray. And it tastes disgusting. If you've ever accidentally put your hand on an area that you've sprayed and then touched your face, it really does taste horrible. And it seems to be working really well. We haven't got any areas of the house that she has particularly gone to town on. So that seems to work. And the idea, my little tip here, is don't wait for them to really chew something before you spray it. If they show any interest in an area that you think is likely to get chewed, give it a spray before the dog starts chewing it. I want Button's first experience on, let's say, the corner of the skirting board, her first experience of a chew there, to be, oh, that tastes horrible, and then she'll come away. I don't want her to have a good chew, decide she likes that area. I then distract her, move her away and spray it, but within a couple of days the spray taste might have worn off and then she's going to go back and chew it again. So I want her very first encounter with an area that she's chewing to be, oh, that's disgusting, and then she doesn't go back. So that's the anti-chew spray. There are loads on the market. There are bitter apples and everything. Some of them, the dogs actually, some dogs really like, so you might just have to have a play around with it and see. That one I found she does not like, so that's what we're continuing to use. So if they are chewing an unwanted area, move them away, distract them with something they can chew. Don't tell them off. It is a natural behaviour and it's a really important behaviour for the teething process. Give that area a good spray and get them focused on something that they can have instead. Make sure you puppy-proof your homes. So I've got, you can't see, but where my TV is, we've put some cushions either side of the TV stand so that she can't get behind the TV stand to find and chew the wires. Any other areas that she's not allowed, we will section off as well. And anything that you don't want the puppies to chew that you can remove, remove it. So don't moan that they have eaten through a pair of your slippers. They shouldn't be on the floor in the first place if you're not wearing them and you're not around to monitor and see what your dog's doing. So make sure remote controls, mobile phones, shoes, any kids' toys that you don't want the dog interacting with, when the kids aren't playing with them, bring them up and off the floor so that puppy does not have access to these areas. Anything that you cannot remove, like sofas and tables and chairs, if you need to, give them a good spray with an anti-stop chew spray and see how they go with that. So that's my advice with puppy teething. And the teething will get worse at around 4 to 5 months before it gets better from about 6 to 7 months when we're almost done with teething. So around 3 to 6 months we are at peak teething time, but hopefully things will settle down, and make sure you supply lots of things. Another thing to mention actually, which I haven't mentioned yet, just because I didn't want to distract her with it, is a carrot. So this is nice and cheap, and this has come straight out of the fridge. She's noticed it now, so I'm just going to break it in half. She can have half. I'll just see if Ruby, she's deaf, so I need to, there we go. Would you like a carrot? She's not as interested in carrots, but we'll see if she wants that. Good girl. Oh no. Good girl. I'm sorry to disturb you, darling. So again, being cold, it's going to help to numb the gums and take some of that pain and irritation and frustration away from that dog. If ever you've had toothache, you can get really ratty and really frustrated with it, and that's exactly what the puppies are feeling when the teeth are changing. So a nice cold carrot is a lovely top tip for you as well. Really inexpensive, easy to get hold of, not fatty, not too sugary, shouldn't upset dogs' tummies as long as you're not giving them too frequently. Half a carrot once a day or every couple of days is more than enough. And I would give that to them when they are at that peak time of the day, when they are really frustrated and wanting to bite and clamp onto everything. Just whip a cold carrot out the fridge and give that to the dog, keeps them occupied for a little while, wears them out, and just gives them something to do to take their mind off of the frustration, and it pain relieves. So they're a great option. If you've got puppy on your lap and you're giving them a stroke and they start to nip you, my advice there is that they're just overstimulated. They're overexcited, and just touch in itself can be really stimulating to a puppy, and therefore when they get overexcited it usually goes to mouthing. So if Buttons was on my lap and I was giving her a stroke and she starts to nip me, I'm just going to pop her on the floor and take my hands away. I might give her a couple of toys to get her focused onto something else. And hopefully my next encounter I'll make sure that I'm a little bit calmer with my stroking, in the hope that that keeps her a little bit calmer. If she's having a crazy where she's jumping up and she's biting and I'm not even interacting with her, she's just whizzing around the room and biting everything and everybody, then again I might whip the carrot out the fridge. I might pop her into a separate area of the house. I might just leave the room myself for 10 seconds or so, just to give her time to settle, and every time she jumps up and bites me I might just leave the room, come back in when she's settled. It's just because she's overexcited, probably overtired as well. The crazy moments of the day usually happen first thing in the morning when they've just seen everybody and they're excited, or in the evening when people are coming home from work, they're getting excited by people coming home from work. And also in that evening time they're tired as well, and overtired, much like children, an overtired child gets a little bit naughty, so they might be whipping around the house, jumping and biting because they're really excited and they're overtired. So just give them something else to do, or pop them in a separate area so they can just get all that energy out. Another option when they're really excitable is just to go and throw a little bit of food out in the garden and allow them to go and scatter feed. That's going to be mental stimulation for them. They can use their noses to go and find that food, and they should be out there for about 10-15 minutes or so, maybe longer, and hopefully they'll come in nice and tired. You can do that with their dinner if you wanted to. If they're on dry food, I feed raw, so I can't do that with their dinner, but I might just go and throw out there some nice healthy natural treats for them. Make sure you've cleaned the garden up first, but just go and throw some treats out in the garden and let the dog go out there and wear itself out trying to find those treats. Another nice little exercise for them. We're going to move on now to advice for puppies that are jumping up and dogs that are jumping up, and what to do when the dogs are jumping up, either at yourself or visitors or people that they see outside. So again, when we're talking about puppies and adult dogs jumping up, before we address how we stop that behaviour, we need to look at why it's happening in the first place. Now, when dogs play with each other, as we mentioned with puppy nipping, they like to bite at each other's faces and ears and lick each other's mouths and interact with each other's faces. And that's exactly what they want to do with you. They're jumping up because they want to get to your face to interact with you. And that's really lovely, but again, we really want to try and avoid them jumping up, because if they jump up at the wrong person, a child, someone that's elderly or frail, or if they're covered in mud, the last thing we want is to be told off by that person because we have an unruly dog. So we want to try and do what we can to teach them the correct behaviour. So it's okay for the dogs to want to ask us for attention. We ask each other for attention, our kids ask their parents for attention, partners ask each other for attention, and that is absolutely fine. But what we want to do is to teach them a more appropriate manner in which to ask that attention, for that attention. So for me personally, I want my dogs either to sit when they'd like a cuddle, or at least to stand with all their feet on the floor, not jumping, if they would like interaction with a person. So that's what we're going to teach them to do instead. Now, in order to train a dog to do something, we need to know what they class as reinforcers or praise or rewards, whatever you want to call it, when they do the correct behaviour. And there are lots of different things that we would class as reinforcers, but I'm going to go through the top 5. So we've got speech, so talking to your dog. They love it when you talk to them. I know with mine, if I talk to them, their eyes light up, they love it. We've got eye contact, so again, going sort of hand in hand with speech really. When we're talking to our dogs, we tend to be looking at them. We've got touch, so if I'm giving my dogs a cuddle, a lot of the time they really love that touch and that interaction. And then we've got the big ones, which are food and toys. So we can train our dogs to do a lot using food or using toys as a reward. And we're going to just put them as what we call reinforcers. So when a dog does a behaviour we do want them to repeat and do again, and we want to train them to continue to do that behaviour on cue, we're going to pair it with a verbal cue, and then we're going to reward for it. However, a lot of the time we make the mistake of when the dog gives us a behaviour we don't want them to repeat, we accidentally reinforce it with one of those top 5. So if we give the example of a dog jumping up at us, when a dog jumps up, you might push the dog away and say off. But actually, although you know as the human that you're telling the dog off and telling them to get away, you've actually touched the dog, made eye contact and spoken to them all at the same time. And a puppy especially, a hand coming towards them can be a sign of play, so they might get quite excited by that, and they might want to play. So dog jumping up, try not to push them down and say off, because you may accidentally be reinforcing that behaviour. Instead, what we're going to do is ignore when they jump up at us, turn your back, fold your arms so you're not tempted to push them, fold your arms, turn away or walk away entirely and wait for the dog to get down. But whenever we're trying to stop a behaviour that we don't want, we need to try and train the behaviour that we do want instead. So again, we mentioned that instead of a dog jumping up when they want to ask for attention, instead we train them to keep all their feet on the floor or maybe to sit. So if my dog jumps up at me, I'm going to wait for them to get down by turning my back and ignoring them, wait for them to get down, wait for them to get focused on something else, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then when they are sniffing something else or playing with something else, or they've moved away from me, I'm then going to, as a fresh exercise, call them towards me. I'm going to lower myself to the ground in a sort of squat, and I'm going to ask the dog into a sit, and only when they're sat will I give them cuddles. Now when I am giving them affection, I'm going to make sure that I'm stroking under their neck, chin and sides. That will keep them nice and low. If I try and go over the top of the head or over the back, I'm more likely to get them jumping up at me, which I don't want. If they do jump at me, I'm going to take my hands away, stand up, ignore, and wait for them to get down, and then start the process again. Now the reason I'm not going to be waiting for them to get down and then immediately asking them to sit is because dogs are very clever and they link behaviours very quickly. So what we might accidentally do is teach the dog that in order to get that attention, the sequence of behaviours is see human, run to human, jump up at human, sit, and then receive attention. I don't want that jumping up to be part of their sequence. So I'm going to wait for them to get down, get distracted on something else, and then separately I'm going to call them over, ask them into a sit, and then they're going to get their affection. Try and keep your affection nice and calm and steady. If you're doing lots of ruffling up and smacking and all this sort of thing, you might end up livening them up and then they're likely to jump up at you. So try and keep everything nice and calm and low. They love a nice little ear massage, don't you, darling? So keeping everything nice and calm, and that will keep them nice and low. Good girl, yes, well done. As you can see, I do not mind dogs on sofas at all, but I would suggest you pop it onto cue. So that means that, well, they ask you, and then you can allow them up if you're ready for them to do so. And in exactly the same way, you'd call them up to your feet by the sofa, we'd ask them into a sit. If they sat, then you can decide whether you want them to come up onto the sofa or not. I have a separate area, so when I bring the dogs back from a walk, if they're dirty and wet, then they go into the kitchen area and they're not allowed back into the living room until they're clean and dry. So I don't mind the dogs on my sofa, but certainly if they were covered in mud, they wouldn't be allowed to be freely jumping on and off. You can teach them an off command, so you give them a reinforcer, you show them something nice, throw it onto the floor, and at the point at which they jump down, we pair it with the verbal cue, which is off, and then their reward is whatever it is onto the floor. But that's completely up to you. Some people just have a flat no dogs on sofas rules, and that is absolutely fine. So we've gone over tips and hints and training exercises for nipping, chewing, and dogs jumping up when you don't want them to. So I hope that's given you enough information that you can do that with your own puppies and your own adult dogs. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have, please press the thumbs up to say that you've liked it, and please by all means share it with your friends, family or anyone else that you know that could benefit from watching this video. If you'd like to see more videos on dog training and Buttons and Ruby, please subscribe to my page for Paws Dog Training, and we will be issuing another video next week. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!